A common question that I'll see pop up in the stream chat and in the YouTube comment section is typically something along the lines of, "Hey Sealord, I have enough coal to get a high tier coal ship. What should I get?" And for a very long time, I would usually say, "Yeah, I think you should get like a Napoli or a Palmer, and they're fun, they're great ships, so forth and so on." And while it's true that Napoli and Palmer are quite fun, and Napoli is incredibly powerful, there is another option that I forgot about because one, it's an incredibly old ship, and two, I forgot that it did get moved over into the coal ship category, and that is the subject of today's video, the Moskva. And in a lot of cases, I think this is actually a much better pick for a first time high tier coal purchase. Now, of course, when I'm talking about buying a high tier premium ship or a high tier coal ship, in this case, I do mean you should definitely play to tier 10 first. That way, you have an idea of what's going on before you hop in and buy any high tier premium ship. My general guidance is that you need to grind to the tier that you're looking at purchasing a premium ship in first before you actually purchase said premium ship. That way you know what the tier's like, what the meta's like, the ships you need to watch out for, rather than just hopping straight into a tier 10 premium ship. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the Moskva. Up until, what was it, like 3 years ago when the Petra came out, she was the tier 10 Soviet tech line heavy cruiser. Well, this is the tier 10 Soviet cruiser. There wasn't a heavy or a light branch at the time, but, well, now there is. So we have the Nevsky line and we have the Petro line, and the devs felt that the Petro better suited the heavy cruisers after the split, so the Moskva was removed from the tech tree and placed into the armory for coal, and the Petro took her spot as the tier 10 tech line Soviet heavy cruiser. And, you know, I was kind of, and still am, pretty much okay with that because I did grind the Moskva out when I heard the news that she was being changed into a coal ship because, you know, grinding out a coal ship and getting it for free saves you, well, a lot of coal. 244,000 coal in the case of the Moskva. So I got her. I played her for quite a bit after I did acquire her because she was fairly popular at the time and fell in love quite quickly with the Moskva. So she got changed to a coal ship, and now she gets the benefits of being a resource ship. You know, the reduced service cost, but of course she does not get the buff to the income that a true premium would. But, you know, reduced service cost is pretty nice anyway. So the Moskva is, well, pretty much like the embodiment of the Soviet large type ship. What do I mean by that? Well, the Soviet large ships, so like the Moskva, the Petro, the Stalingrad, the Kremlin, and even, again, most of the battleship line, they are incredibly tanky from a bow and profile, but they have weak sides to where if you do slip up and, you know, show a little bit too much ankle, you are going to get vibe checked for most of your health. And the Moskva is that down to a T. Incredibly strong when angled, especially bow in. She's actually quite sturdy from the stern too, as we'll talk about here in a minute. And that's generally how you'll be playing the Moskva. You either find an island doesn't snuggle up to, not unlike a Des Moines, and use that to protect your sides while you stay angled into the target that you are dealing with, which you will see me do that later on in the match watching the background. But her guns are nice in the situations where RNG isn't screwing with you too much, as you'll see happen to me in the background footage. Yet again, she has 3x3 220 millimeter guns. You get 2 turrets in the front, 1 turret in the back. And these guns, of course, have the Soviet biased AP shells. So they have the nice, you know, air drag coefficient, the nice velocity, well, more than nice velocity, 985 meters a second, fellas. That's how fast these shells are coming out of the tubes. And again, because of the good air drag coefficient, it maintains that velocity better at range than a lot of other shells do, which means that at further ranges, the penetrating power of these shells is intact much further than, again, similar shells. So that means you can chunk ships that show you their broadside out at range a lot better than other cruisers can. Now, again, in my experience, the Moskva, the RNG is more present there than you'll find on a lot of other Soviet large ships, or like the Petropavlovsk. Her guns, I would say, are more squirrely at range than the Moskvas. But unlike the Petropavlovsk, you do get a really nice reload time on the Moskva. The base reload time is 10.3 seconds. Of course, with the module and a healthy bit of adrenaline rush, you'll see that getting quite low quite fast. Again, with Soviet shells that are in a larger caliber, like 220 millimeters. That also means that when you do run to those situations where you can't, use your AP, because at the end of the day they are 220 millimeter shells, and yes, they have the Soviet ballistics and such, but they're still 220 millimeter shells, and going up against tier 10 and super ships, armor is still very much a thing. But again, because of the good reload, you can still fall back on the HE shells when you need to. Now, of course, the HE shells aren't quite as potent as the AP shells, only having an alpha of 3,100 versus the AP shells alpha of 5,800. But you do get a 17% fire chance base, again, on a ship with a 10-second reload. And again, if you take the reload module and the adrenaline rush, they'll be going down pretty fast. You won't have too much trouble starting fires. Is it a flamethrower? No. But again, with the good reload time, you can get plenty of fires started when you need to. Again, you won't be beating a Des Moines in a DPM battle when you're using the HE, but it is still usable is what I'm saying here. And they do pin 37 millimeters of armor, so again, at tier 10, you're over the 32 millimeter threshold, so you're golden there. Typically in the Moskva, in like the opening couple of minutes when everyone's kind of scrambling to get to their position, I'll keep AP loaded, because if you catch a cruiser broadside or a battleship broadside with the AP, you can chunk them pretty good. Then like once we get to the caps and everyone's more bowing and angled, I'll use the HCA for quite some time, and then when we get closer in and ships trying to make their moves and such, then you use the AP to really chunk the enemy ships when they show you their broadside, even their superstructure if we're talking about battleships, because again, these shells are quite good. What's also really nice is because of the nice ballistics of the shells, the HE shells are pretty good for dealing with destroyers. And you know what else is good for dealing with destroyers? Radar. And this is where a big up for the Moskva comes in. It gets not the Soviet radar, it gets the range, but not the runtime. She gets a 30-second radar here, fellas. Not the 12-second radar that you'll find on a lot of newer Soviet ships. A good old 30-second radar. That's base, which means you can build into that. And again, this radar has a range of 12 kilometers. So if you really want to make destroyers' lives miserable, you build into your radar, and now you got those nice Soviet shell ballistics on those HE shells, those nice flat shell arcs. Great for dealing with destroyers on, again, a 10-second reload. So, yeah, it's quite potent at making DD's lives miserable. Really, anybody's lives miserable that's trying to get into the cap circle and cap, right? So that's a pretty powerful combo right there. You also get a choice of DFAA or Hydro. I take Hydro because torpedoes and submarines are a thing, and, well, having Hydro to spot those torpedoes and bug those subs is excellent, in my opinion. The ship is also fairly quick. I mean, especially for her size, right? If you put the speed flag on her, you'll be going north of 35 knots, and that's pretty good, again, for a ship of her size. She's also very, very healthy with 69,000 hit points. If you do take the skill, the expert, was it survivability expert skill. I just forgot how to English there for a second. Yeah, you'll be, I think, just under 70,000 HP, which is insane for a tier 10 cruiser to have. Keep in mind, again, this was a tech line cruiser back in the day. So that's her highlights and her features. Now, why would I recommend this ship over the Napoli or like the Pomeran and such? Because the Moskva can and will do well in random battles today. Again, you'll see that in the background match. Again, this isn't like an overly special match or anything. This is just kind of a average-ish match that, we had a bit more of an exciting ending here, but this is about what you'll have happen in Moskva, right, in terms of performance, at least for me, right, like 130, 150k, no problem in the Moskva. But anyway, besides being a really, really solid ship for random battles, it also teaches you the fundamentals of being a cruiser. Don't show your broadside, because its armor, while from the bow end is great, from the side, it's got a big citadel, right? So you can't really show your side without getting punished. So it's a great teacher for that. It's great at teaching you to use island cover. It's also really good at, well, I wouldn't say it's amazing at it, but it can kite as well. pretty well. Again, if you know your armor, you know how to angle exactly to, well, where you can and where you can't, what's showing a little bit too much angle and what's not. You'll quickly figure that out with the Moskva. Then of course you'll carry that knowledge on with you to the next ship that you go after and such. And it's got a really nice tool set for randoms as well. So you'll be thinking about, hey, there's something in the cap, I should probably radar. And now hey, there's something in the cap, we should take care of that. You learn to pay attention more when you have the tools to deal with destroyers and such, right? You'll see where the torpedoes are coming from, you'll see if it's in your radar range. So naturally, when you move on to whatever cruiser you're going to next, you'll see those destroyer torpedoes and you'll be like, oh, I bet he's over there. So you learn to pay attention with the Moskva because, again, you have the tools to take care of destroyers and submarines and all this stuff, right? So you'll take that knowledge and move on to the next ship with it, and hopefully become a better player for it. But at the end of the day, too, it absolutely teaches you that you can't show your broadsides in a cruiser to other things with big guns, which at the bare minimum is a good lesson. And you might think that's an obvious lesson, but it's unfortunately not. So besides those two things, it's also a really good ship for clan battles. It's a nice substitute if like Stalingrad gets banned or Stalingrad isn't viable, because Stalingrad has a 12-kilometer radar as well. You can substitute that with the Moskva's radar, right? And you get a bit more DPM out of a Moskva than you do a Stalingrad. So if you're looking for something that is a good random battleship, is also something that will teach you how to cruiser correctly, and something that you can take into clan battles with you, it's the Moskva. And yeah, sure, the Napoli is also something that is really popular and competitive, right? But the Moskva, I mean, the tool set it brings to the table. Like, Napoli is a pretty selfish ship, right? You have a smokescreen and sap secondaries, right? That's the extent of its tool set. Oh, and the torpedoes, right? All that's very selfish stuff. Like, you smoke yourself up. A lot of times what you'll see in random battles is Napolis will smoke themselves up. And what does it do? It actually just blinds a lot of the team's vision on the ship that it's targeting. Then they'll pop their fighter, and then they'll farm it down with sap secondaries and such. The Moskva has hydro, radar. It's a great tank, right? So if you need something to survive on a flank, you send a Napoli there. I'm sorry, you send a Moskva there with its radar and with its hydro. It'll make, whatever DD is trying to cap or exist on that flank, it'll make their life miserable because of that 12-kilometer, 30-second radar that, again, you can build into to push it out even further. And it's tanky. Again, it's got good armor. It's got the old 20-second cruiser burn time. This is a cruiser that if it came out today, it absolutely would have a 60-second burn time on it, but not the Moskva. It's got the good old 20-second burn time. So then you throw Kutuzov on here, which you can do for free because it's a premium ship, and you're golden, right? Like, you're going to take forever to murder if you're playing the ship right and you don't get, deleted early on in the match. So she's a ship that, if you're looking for your first high-tier premium cruiser, she's definitely worth taking a look at. Now, is she better than the Napoli? In my opinion, for, like, team play and for a competitive setting, it's a very close between the two. But at the end of the day, of course, it depends upon what you want out of it. If you want a fun ship that's just, slap W and go for it, that's definitely the Napoli. But if you want a ship that's, more tactical, more practical, in a lot of cases, more team play oriented, it's definitely the Moskva, in my humble opinion. A ship that I do believe you should definitely be looking at if you're looking at picking up your first high-tier premium cruiser. But that is just my opinion and my 2 cents on the Moskva. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.